Hello, I'm Adam from FabLab El Paso, and in this video we're going to take a brief look at some of the features in Autodesk's Fusion 360, along with a slightly more in-depth look into its parametric modeling capabilities. There's a lot of functionality packed into Fusion 360. There is a design workspace for 3D modeling and mechanical assemblies, a generative design workspace, rendering and animation workspaces to showcase and explore your models, a simulation workspace to run studies like heat transfer or deformation from stress, a manufacturing workspace to plan out and set up control files for equipment like 3D printers and CNC machines, and finally a drawing workspace where you can create engineering drawings with different views and dimension callouts. We are going to focus on the solid body modeling capabilities of Fusion 360. We'll be working in the design workspace and mostly out of the solid tab. Parametric modeling is a modeling process which uses parameters to drive the shape and size of the model. By defining relations and constraints between sketches, bodies, and features, the design is created in a way that can be edited by modifying the parameters. This allows for quick and easy changes of the model. At the core of this process, sketches are used as the most basic building block to define shape and size. We create sketches on planes. This could be one of the origin planes, a user-created construction plane, or a flat face on a body. We have many sketching tools, with some of the most basic being lines, rectangles, and circles. We can constrain and dimension these in relation to each other to fully define our sketch. There are many ways to utilize the sketches we create, such as extruding a closed profile linearly or revolving a closed profile around an axis to create a solid body. We can modify the body with tools like the fillet, shell, or combine tool, among others. The modeling process is a combination of using sketches, body creation tools, and body modification tools to model your design. To export your design for 3D printing, right-click your body in the browser menu and select Save as Mesh. In the window that pops up, select STL for format, millimeter for unit type, and select the desired level of refinement. I usually select high. Uncheck Send to 3D Print utility unless you've set that up, hit OK, and then navigate to where you want to save your file. One slightly more advanced use of Fusion 360 is working with components and joints to create mechanical assemblies. We'll start with two bodies that we want to interact. The first step is creating separate components to house each body, and then grounding one of them. Next, we can select Joint. Select our two components and how we want them to be jointed. I'll select Revolve and select the axis to revolve around. Now we can revolve the red body around the blue body. With this method, you can build complex mechanical assemblies of different components. Now that we've checked out the features of Fusion 360, I'm going to walk you through a simple model. We're going to model a custom pill holder for a patient. So I'm going to start with a sketch. I'm going to select this base plane here, and I'm going to hit R for rectangle, center rectangle, and I'm going to define this. I'm thinking a good size. I'm looking at a ruler in my hand. I'm thinking a good size for this might be, let's say 50 millimeters across. And we'll do 60 millimeters tall. So I've got one sketch here, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and make some slots for pills. So the idea is that instead of being handed a cup with maybe a couple pills in it and it's hard to tell what's in that cup, well, we're going to have a little custom device where there's a slot for each specific pill. So with a quick look, you can say, hey, all my cavities or all these holes are filled up with a pill. I got all the medicine I need. So I'm just under the create menu. These are some of our sketching tools, and I'm going to find slot. So right here, center to center slot. And there's a lot of different options for a lot of these tools, just depending on what's easiest to work with. For example, we have a center to center slot, or if we knew where a center point was, we could make a center point and get a curved slot. There's multiple ways to do a lot of these, but I'm just going to go with the center point to center point slot. So I've got one there, I'll do another one in the middle, and I'll do one at the bottom. And so now I want all of these, see how I can move this? So these are unconstrained. If your lines are blue, that means they're unconstrained. If they're black, they're fully constrained. So if I try to move this black line here, I can't. But this I can. The dashed lines are construction lines, and then the solid lines are the actual lines that you're going to be using for profiles and extrusions and whatnot. So I want all three of these slots to be the same size. So I'm going to select this middle construction line on each of them. I'm going to apply the equal constraint, which is going to put all of those to the same length. And so now you can see that this line I'm selecting right now for all those is the same length. And now we can dimension that as well. All right, now I'm looking at this, let's say 20 millimeters right there. And they all change because they've got a constraint between them. And so this outside I can still move because this has to do with either the radius of this arc or the distance between these two lines. So even though I constrained one thing, it's still not fully constrained. Let's say this dimension here we'll put it at 12.5 millimeters. Now we're still unconstrained, or still not fully constrained, because I can move it around. So we have to tell this where to exist. And I want this centered, so I'm going to draw a construction line. I'm going to hover in the middle of this line, that little triangle comes up. That triangle just tells us that is the center point. So I'm going to click there, do the same thing here. And so now we've got something telling us this line is starting at the center, or the midpoint of this line, and goes to the midpoint of this line. I'm going to apply a horizontal / vertical constraint to this line, which will lock it up and down. So now if I try to move this, I can only move it up and down. I can't move it left to right. And then I'll specify between this edge and this edge, let's say that's 5 millimeters. I'm going to do a similar thing for these, since I want all of these pill slots to be in the middle. So here's my middle, or midpoint to midpoint line, and then midpoint to midpoint line. I'm going to apply that same constraint to these. So now you can see they're all in the middle. So I believe these guys are still unconstrained this way, but I'm going to select the radius, or I'm going to select this arc. I'm going to select this arc and this arc. I'm going to tell all those arcs to be the same. So I'm setting their radiuses equal to each other. So now they're confined, and I can't change that anymore. I can still move them up and down because I haven't specified the distances between each other, but I want that to be 5 millimeters. So I'm going to select the dimension tool, select the two lines I want to dimension from, and put those to 5. And so here we run into an issue where, well, I'm going to call it an issue, but if we measure with this measure tool up here under inspect, if I select this line and this line, we're 7.5 millimeters. They're 7.5 millimeters away from each other, whereas up here I had it be 5 millimeters. If I try to dimension this, so I select my sketch dimension tool and I try to dimension from here to here, I'm going to get an error. And this says adding this dimension will over constrain this sketch. And so what that's saying is, hey, you've already told us what these dimensions have to be, right? So if I kind of move these over real quick, we know this top line to this bottom line should be 60 millimeters. And then we've defined this portion here is 5, 12.5, 5. These are equal, so there to there should be 12.5, there to there should be 12.5. And so that leaves this totally defined, right? It already knows it has to be 7.5. So if we try to tell it to be a different number, it can't do that. Instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this 60 here. And you can see all these go blue now because they don't know exactly where to be, right? We can drag them around. But I'm going to add one more dimension from here to here. And now I can set that as 5. When we set that as 5, now the whole thing is fully constrained. All right. For this next part, I'm going to hit Finish Sketch, and I'm going to select Extrude. I'm going to select this closed profile here. It's closed because we can select it, and you see it lights up blue. And then actually I'm going to select everything right now. So I'm selecting all the sketches we just made, and we can extrude this. So this is just turning that sketch and linearly extruding that into a solid body. I think 15 millimeters, oops. So depending on if your number is positive or negative, it just changes the direction. So I actually want it going down right now. So let's say 15 millimeters is good. We've got that going, and now I'm gonna hit extrude again. I'm gonna select just our little fill slots. And then I'm gonna drag that into our body. And so now it turns a little bit red. So this is telling us we're gonna cut into this body. And we also see that operation on this right-hand side. We can join, cut, intersect, create a new body or a new component. So I'm gonna leave it on cut, and I wanna cut this, let's say 10 millimeters deep. I'm gonna hit OK. And so now we've made that cut into here. We still see all these sketch lines, and maybe that's a little confusing. So on the left side, I'm gonna go down, drop down our sketch menu, and I'm going to click this little eyeball to hide that sketch. So now we just see our body. This is looking pretty good to me. We just did this dimension as 10. I'm gonna look at a ruler real quick. Maybe that seems a little deep. That seems a little excessive. And I think this overall thing we made 15, which probably is a little excessive too. So I'm gonna hit Edit Feature. So down here on the very bottom, we have our timeline, and either by dragging our little slider here or clicking these arrows, it's just a timeline that you can move back and forwards in. So I hit back right now, so we lost our holes. If I click forward, we regain those. Right now, I'm gonna click back, and I'm gonna edit this feature. We made this 15 millimeters deep before. Right now, I think I only need that to be 10. If we go to the end, this feature didn't update because we specified that, hey, cut down 10 millimeters. But since they're both 10 millimeters, it cut all the way through. So I can edit this feature and say, maybe, looking at a ruler right now, maybe something like 6 or 7 millimeters. Let's do 6 millimeters. That seems good to me. And we've got this. So now let's modify this body a little more. So under the modification tools, I'm going to add a fillet. And this is where you have access to a lot of other tools to do stuff with, but I want to fillet because I want to round these corners. So I'm going to select this edge, this edge, this edge, and then this back edge. So you can select through the body, or you can rotate your camera and select it. From here, we're going to put in the radius that we want this fillet to be at. So let's try 5. We could go a little more. Let's try 10. All right, now it's starting to look a little more ergonomic. So I'm going to hit OK for that. And then I also want these bottom face, I want this to be rounded here. So I'm going to click fillet again, select these bottom faces, and put in a number. Let's try 3. So you can see those are now kind of like a curve there. Let's try 5. I'm thinking maybe I like 4. I'm going to hit OK. Now let's also add a little fillet on top here. So I'm going to select a couple of these edges. This is unneeded, but makes it look a little softer, a little nicer. So we can try like a 1 right there. And then we can even add a fillet to this outer edge. Let's try 2 millimeters. Cool. All right, so now I just decided I want this fillet here also to exist on this bottom face. So I'm gonna hit Edit Feature. So this is in the timeline, this is the fillet feature. And if I hover over it or click on it, you can see which fillets those correspond to. So this one is those, that's that bottom, and those were the corners. So this one, I want to edit that. So right click, hit Edit. And then now I can just select more stuff. Click that, and that should be fine. I'm going to hit OK. And so there we go. That's a pretty quick and easy intro to some modeling. Other features you have access to is right now we only have 1 sketch. And let's say we've gotten this far, and then we go, hey, this width from this face here to this face here looks a little wide. We don't need it that wide. But that was a dimension that we created in our sketch. So I'm going to go Edit Sketch. We had it as 50. Maybe it looks a little better as 45. So that's the parameters within this parametric modeling process, where you can edit those parameters, and it will update your model downstream. So we hit that, I'm gonna hit finish sketch, and then it did everything following it, and now we have an updated model. Sometimes this is a double-edged sword where changes like earlier on in your history might mess up features later in your history. So just be mindful of that. All right, last thing to do, let's say we want to personalize this. So I'm going to create another sketch. I'm going to select this face here. I'm going to hit the P key to project geometry, and I'm going to select this face. So all that did was bring in this purple line. I'm going to hide the body so we can see it a little bit better. All this did is bring in this purple line telling us, hey, this is that face you just selected. What I want to do now is I'm going to hit create and go to our text tool, draw a text box here, and I'm going to say, let's say these are Ron's pills. So I'll type in Ron, I'll edit the height of these, let's say they're 34 millimeters, looks good. So I'll say Ron on Tuesday. I'm just going to center that real quick and then hit OK. Just to make sure this is truly centered, I'm going to add a horizontal constraint right here to this top line. I'm going to dimension this to the height of our letters, which is 4. And I'm going to do a similar process that we did earlier, where I'm going to draw a construction line from the midpoint here to the midpoint there. And then I'm going to apply a vertical constraint to that. I'm going to do the same on the side and apply a horizontal constraint to that. And so all that did is just lock in Ron-2 to the middle of this box. So now I'm going to hit finish sketch. I'm going to unhide our body 1, which is our pill case. I'm going to select the extrude tool, and I'm going to select these letters. And now I'm going to extrude them into our pill to cut it. So I'm going to cut about 0.5 millimeter. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to hide this sketch. And now we've got that Ron Tuesday cut into our pill case. So I'm going to call this done. This is our custom little pill cup for Ron for his Tuesday medication. And if we wanted to 3D print this, we would just go to, there's a couple ways to do it, but we could right click on our body, hit save as mesh, change the format to STL, unit type millimeter, refinement high, and then we would hit OK and select our location to save. There are so many tools and features in Fusion 360, this video is barely scratching the surface. I hope you can see the benefits of learning a program like this and the ways it can help you problem solve, design, and test solutions.